Welcome back to the Rundown Lab, where we break down and fact check the biggest health podcasts. We know your time is valuable, but when you can, we always recommend catching the full episode. Links are in the description. What if the games you played as a child actually rewired your brain for life? And what if understanding the science behind play could help you stay mentally sharp as an adult? These are compelling ideas, but how well does the science actually support them? I'm taking a closer look at an episode from the Huberman Lab Essentials series, where Andrew Huberman explores how play affects our brains. This is a topic that blends fascinating neuroscience with some genuinely useful insights. But as we'll see, a few of the claims venture into territory that's more speculative than the confident delivery might suggest. Let's start with what the episode gets right, because there's actually quite a lot of solid science here. Huberman accurately describes the periaqueductal gray, or PAG, as a brain region involved in producing endogenous opioids, our body's natural painkillers and feel-good chemicals. This is well-established neuroscience. The PAG is indeed central to pain modulation and contains neurons that make enkephalins and beta-endorphin. He's also correct that the prefrontal cortex handles executive functions like planning, decision-making, and predicting outcomes. While these functions involve distributed brain networks, the prefrontal cortex is absolutely the key player. The episode accurately notes that elevated adrenaline levels inhibit play behavior. This comes directly from the research of Jaak Panksepp, a pioneer in the neuroscience of play. High arousal states that flood the system with stress hormones do indeed suppress playful behavior, which makes intuitive sense if you think about it. And for the etymology enthusiasts, yes, cerebellum does translate to little brain from Latin. Sometimes the small facts are the most satisfying to confirm. Now here's where things get more complicated. When Huberman describes how play triggers opioid release from the PAG, which then enhances prefrontal cortex function and makes us better at cognitive flexibility, that's presenting a neat, linear story that the research doesn't fully support. Yes, play is associated with prefrontal development. Yes, opioids are involved in play. But the direct causal chain he describes, opioids released, prefrontal cortex enhanced, you get smarter, is more of a reasonable speculation than an established mechanism. The actual neuroscience involves multiple neurotransmitter systems interacting in complex ways that researchers are still working to untangle. Similarly, when he discusses how endogenous opioids promote playfulness, this is mostly accurate but missing crucial context. The relationship follows an inverted U-curve. Moderate opioid activity promotes play, but high levels actually suppress it. Without that nuance, listeners might walk away with an incomplete picture. There's also a claim about a specific universal play signal in humans, a head tilt combined with open eyes. While these nonverbal cues are indeed associated with playful engagement, calling any single gesture combination the universal play signal overstates what cross-cultural research has actually established. Play signaling in humans involves multiple context-dependent cues that vary across situations and cultures. The episode suggests that dynamic, multi-directional movements like dance or soccer activate play-related brain circuitry more effectively than linear movement like running. This sounds plausible. Complex movements do engage more cerebellar cortical circuits, but the specific comparison hasn't been directly tested. It's reasonable speculation presented as more established science than it actually is. Finally, there's the claim that neuroplasticity mechanisms change around age 25. While it's true that prefrontal cortex maturation continues into the mid-20s, presenting 25 as a specific turning point oversimplifies what's actually a gradual process with substantial individual variation. Different brain regions and different types of plasticity follow different developmental timelines. Here's the good news. I didn't find any claims in this episode that were outright false or seriously misleading. The foundation is solid neuroscience, primarily drawing on Panksepp's well-regarded research on play systems. The issues are matters of degree, presenting reasonable extrapolations as more established than they are, or simplifying complex mechanisms into cleaner narratives than the evidence supports. So what's the bottom line? This is a generally reliable episode built on legitimate neuroscience research. The core message, that play matters for brain development and function, is well supported. Huberman demonstrates solid foundational knowledge, particularly when discussing Panksepp's work on the neural circuits underlying play. Where you should apply some skepticism is when specific mechanistic chains are presented, like opioids directly enhancing prefrontal function, or when claims get very precise about ages and universal behaviors. The science of play is genuinely fascinating, but it's also genuinely complicated. The key takeaway? Play probably is good for your brain. The exact mechanisms are still being worked out. And that's actually how good science works. We know something matters before we fully understand why.